As never before, we are confronted with the unthinkable specter of a nuclear Armageddon.
By the time Coretta Scott King delivered this speech at the Cathedral of St. John in New York City, she'd been an anti-nuclear advocate for nearly 30 years. Coretta was an activist and leader. She stood for peace in a world of violence.
Did you educate Mrs. King to become equal to you in terms of sharing this burden, or did you research her before your marriage to see that she had the potential for this, or how did it come about?
Well, it may have been the other way. I think at many points she educated me.
Her activism began in college, where she supported the NAACP and other peace and race-related causes.
Because she was as actively involved and concerned when we met as she is now.
She was ahead of Martin on the peace issue. For instance, she was the first to criticize the war in Vietnam.
I call upon the President of the United States to stop the bombing in Vietnam now.
And as her anti-war efforts escalated, so did her anti-nuclear activities. In 1957, Coretta was present for the creation of SANE, the Committee for a Sane Nuclear Policy. Martin Luther King Jr. followed her lead, publicly supporting SANE 4 years later in 1961.
I refuse to accept the cynical notion that nation after nation must spiral down a militaristic stairway into the hell of nuclear annihilation.
And throughout the 1960s, Coretta Scott King was an early integral member of Women's Strike for Peace, an anti-nuclear organization. The press failed to see that it was Coretta who was the clear leader when it came to peace and nuclear disarmament.
Incidentally, in terms of the peace demonstration in Washington, I noticed that your wife was there, but you were not. A copy of of her address. Mm-hmm. And I wondered, as I read through it, whether you had any hand in the writing of it, or whether this stemmed from her,